A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon and good evening to all the online viewers from different parts of the world. A big welcome to Corporate Innovation Summit 2021. My name is Marcus Kwok. What an absolute honor to be part of this wonderful event. Now, it is our great pleasure to have so many distinguished guests joining us today, powered by Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation. The Corporate Innovation Summit today has a number of visionary experts to share with us corporate innovation. In the coming 6 days, you will enjoy the corporate innovation workshops, as well as the hybrid global matching 2021, where you can find your best fit technology solutions via www.cisummit2021.com. Just now, you have already tapped into the insights from 3 keynote speakers and Eugene. Next, we are going to have 3 thought-provoking panels from more thought leaders and innovators, covering the global macroeconomics, sustainability, and corporate innovation trends distilled from findings of academia and corporates. Each panel discussion will be followed by a 15-minute roundtable session on the floor. We cordially invite you, especially to all VIP guests here, to share your takeaways, your thoughts, and experiences with other guests. Feel free to say what you think, as there will be no recording of your sharing, except for a few tables that we have already gotten your consent for live streaming to online audience. We have also invited a professional facilitator to be seated in each roundtable to lead the discussion. For our online audience, you will hear more industry experts on their achievements and challenges on business transformation. So don't miss any session of this 3-hour show. Without further ado, let's start today's first innovation discussion on the way forward to achieve economic prosperity, how 2020 impacted the transformation of business in the future. Joining us on the panel are Mr. Sebastian Schenk, Head of Digitalization of Businesses, Asia Pacific and Digital Ecosystems, BASF Asia Pacific. Mr. Sebastian Paredes, CEO, DBS Bank, Hong Kong Limited. Mr. Leong Cheung, Executive Director, Charities and Community, the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Ms. Eva Lee, Head of HK Equity, Chief Investment Officer, UBS Global Wealth Management, UBS. And we are delighted to have Ms. Akina Ho, Head of Digital Transformation and Innovation, Great Eagle Holdings Limited, to moderate this session. Welcome to you all. Now, the discussion will be summarized in the form of real-time illustrations. Hope you all enjoy. And now I'll pass the floor to Akina and our lovely panelists.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to be here. We have seen the worst of the worst in the past 18 months. We have trade war between China and US. We have tightened monetary policy in China. And of course, the unprecedented health crisis around the world that forced government to spend billions of unwanted dollars into fixing these issues. Today, we're going to kickstart up with Mr. Paredes, Sebastian, as you like me to call you. I know you said something that I thought was quite intriguing. You said you make crisis your best friend, or your friend. You have faced crises from Ecuador, Africa, Indonesia, and now Hong Kong and China. How did you position DBS in the past 18 months to thrive in such and survive, mainly survive, in this time?
Thank you, Kina. Thank you for the question. I make that statement in the context of my own career of survival, because if you don't survive a crisis, you don't have a job. Yeah. But I think that there are 2 very distinctive phases: pre-crisis, the crisis, and how you manage it. Pre-crisis is everything we manage, and everything in my career has been driven by managing in good times with an eye of a bad time. Because when the crisis comes, it's already too late to either fix the things that you could have fixed before. So if you always manage the good times with an eye for the bad times, when the crisis comes, it's easier to segregate the effects of the current crisis from what is the true nature of what would be after the crisis. And I said that because when the crisis hit, let's say these specific crises, the first thing we did in March 2020 was to gather the management team and foresee what could happen immediately and what could happen post-crisis. And we had a vision of what would happen after the crisis.
Wow.
Even though we didn't know whether vaccines will come or not, but we knew in our minds what could happen in 18 months. And then we positioned the bank and the actions that we should take towards that end.
But were you right? Was the team right?
We have done so much in terms of anticipating events and then tweaking with the events that could take place. For example, we knew for certain that interest rates will be low for a long time.
Okay.
We knew that there will be a substantial amount of lockdowns. We knew that the bank would lose a substantial amount of revenues due to the low interest rates. And therefore, we created some action plans to offset those revenue impactful things. Fee business, wealth management, we knew that in the low interest rates, there will be a substantial amount of interest for wealth management and wealth products, that the equity markets will probably elevate it. There will be asset inflation of sorts in real estate, in equities, and the rest. And therefore, we started creating task forces that would position the bank towards that end in terms of offsetting revenue crisis, in terms of work from home, for example. We started making work from home permanent since last year.
Wow, that's pretty innovative for banks, because banks are very customer focused and they're normally locked in a room or somewhere, right?
That's right, but we thought that that would be the end of the post-pandemic events, that people would like to have, not only because of expense reductions. We never started with that. We thought that people will love to have a different type of post-pandemic balance in the way they work. And therefore, we are already implementing now work from home arrangements in terms not only on real estate, but cultural changes, the way we manage people, the way we hire, and the rest.
Excellent, great.
And many, many other more, including, for example, as you heard on the press, doing some acquisitions and investments. We bought a bank in India. We just bought the majority shareholding in Shenzhen Rural Commercial Bank. All these things started in March 2019 as a preemption of what could happen post-pandemic world.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So Eva, I'm going to move to you, because you're in the same banking industry, but you're mainly in investment.
Yeah.
And your expertise is in property. But I read somewhere in South China Post that you said that property is not the way to go. It's something else. So I want you to mention that. But not only that, but to what Sebastian has said, investors are the least likely to think forward. Not unless they're investing in technology, but investing in fixed assets and things like that. They're very reactive. What do you think the change of strategy during the past 18 months?
Well, I think, saying property is not the way to go in Hong Kong is very dangerous.
I might be fired soon, right? I'm in the real estate industry, so. Right.
But I think what we can see is, okay, first, when we face the pandemic, I think every single people in the world would say, oh, is it like a repeat of 2008? Oh, the liquidity crunch, and then all the asset prices is going under pressure. It's not happening, right? We know that the liquidity in this round of pandemic is actually very ample compared to 2008. And as a result, low rates, asset prices actually have been keeping at a very steady level. But one thing is happening. The rental side, the commercial rental, the hotel yields, all these are under pressure. We know all the shopping malls, no one's sort of mobility restrictions. We cannot go,
turnaround.
right? So as a result, when you look at the yield, like rental to the capital value say unchanged, rental under pressure, the yield squeezed. At the moment, you think, oh, it's all good because the rate is very low. But eventually, we know the 10-year yield is already on the rise. We expect the US 10-year yield by the end of this year to be 2%, not 1.6 or 0.7. So eventually we'll feel that its property yield at this level, is it sustainable? Right. I think that's something we need to ask ourselves. Second is, I know Hong Kong is very interesting compared to the rest of the world. We have very tight supply. So we have a lot of savings. Households want to buy property. This is where the brick and...
If they can afford it.
They want to keep it, right? But at the end of the day, eventually, a lot of commercial side of things we need to change.
Right.
We might not be having so many tourists as in the past, right? Our mix, remember, before pandemic, I think 1/3 or maybe more of the total consumption in Hong Kong is from tourists.
True,
And
true.
how much would we have post-pandemic? Do people change the mindset? They can shop in their home country.
Right.
Do they want an experience rather than shopping? So a lot of changes of online is coming in place.
Yeah.
How the existing operators co-op with the online, O2O, we talk about it this term, but have people really executed that well? I think that's one thing we need to understand. But amongst all, there is a bright area, industrial property.
Right, I heard about that.
Logistics, right?
Right.
We all know that. Data center. Hong Kong is very tight in supply. It's not every single industrial building can be converted in data center anyway. But one thing we note is there is always, everything is not equal, right? And property is the same. We have a bright side. We have another side that we need to restructure. I think as an operator, as an entrepreneur, as an owner, we need to think about it way forward, how to transform your property to make it relevant
Great,
in the
thanks.
new normal world.
That's excellent. Thanks, Eva. Okay, Mr. Shank, to you. You're a little bit different. You're not a banker, thank
No.
God, right? So two is enough on the panel. So great thing, you're from a very traditional business, which a lot of us are in. How did you use technology? You're head of digital for APAC, for your BASF. How did you pivot? What did you invest in? What did you do to make you survive in the past 18 months? That's really critical to your business.
Yeah, very interestingly, BASF is a 150-plus-year-old company, right? And to stay in business for such a long time in an industry like that, you better be innovative and you better be good at anticipating certain things.
Right.
So, how did we survive the last 18 months? Simply because we came prepared. So when literally, from one day to the other, for example, shared service center or, our headquarters in Ludwigshafen said, send everyone home, we had the infrastructure in place that could allow to do that.
You had the money to do that?
We pre-invested in
Okay.
infrastructure, in the right, software platforms. To begin with, because at some point we also figured out that, over even before the crisis, that the way that we are cooperating within the company will probably change. It's probably not a smart idea to fly, for small meetings, across the globe, right? We have these video conferencing systems, right? The few out there.
But how do you deal with the culture change? Because technology is simple to deploy. The hardest thing is changing culture. People are not able to fly or meet people in place. I'm sure there's a lot of complaint resistance.
They are, it's like people understand, right? At some point. And I also for myself hope, the current normal will not be the perpetual new normal where you are not able to interact personally with people, right? But, from a sustainability point of view, the time investment of traveling, et cetera, it's like people, I do a lot of work with, colleagues in Germany, and I do like that instant,
Right.
interaction, and people, the colleagues are getting more and more used to it.
So they were thankful when COVID hit. They said, oh, I'm used to this now.
It's we practiced this
Okay,
beforehand,
right,
right?
okay.
And then it was just it was a steady growing trajectory. It just, the pandemic just kicked it up,
Yeah.
just massively, right?
Right.
In so many other areas of, digital transformation in our company, we observed the same thing. It's just progressing.
Heck yeah. All right. Mr. Leung, you're nonprofit. You're from one of the oldest and most prestigious nonprofit organizations, Jockey Club. You've done a lot for the society and stuff. In the past 18 months, do you view what you do for our community, ESG and all that changed? What do you do that you felt like would really made a true value for what you do for the society?
Right. So thank you. I think for the Jockey Club, we are the largest funder in Hong Kong, and for that matter, we're one of the 10th largest funder globally. So our size, annual donation size, is similar to the Ford Foundation. I think we used to think of ourselves as a risk capital almost, for social impacts, for social changes. But under the COVID situation, it was a crisis. So another function of a charity trust is very, very critical, is to feel the pressing need. So I think that's what we try to do in that period. So, finding our own purpose and then stay true to that purpose. Just very quickly, in the last 18 months, we have made close to 1.5 billion Hong Kong dollar donation related to COVID. And I would say, we had to do it in a very systematic way. So we had to listen. Initially, the first week in February, our team called up hundreds of our partners to find out what the community really need. And then we put our money to work in that sense. I would say there are probably a couple of words that would summarize that. One is really agility. I think some speakers also talk about that.
Right.
There's no time to think, to strategize further. The community was in need at that time. You just need to deliver, whatever
Very
that's
proactive.
required very, very quickly and grounded. We gave out 15 million masks in the first few months during the last year's pandemic. But the other word I will also emphasize is creativity. And that sometimes also relate a lot to technology. So how technology, not serving just few shareholders, a lot of profit in a very short time, but to serve a larger community, more stakeholders in a more sustainable way.
Right, great.
I think, for example, very early stage, when schools were locked down,
Right.
You have to learn from home.
Right.
But very quickly, we realized a lot of students, in their living environment, there's no broadband.
Right.
So they borrow their mother's SIM card.
Right.
And that SIM card, practically, data plan is gone in the first Zoom section. So we very quickly actually work with the commercial world. We work with all 4 mobile carriers in Hong Kong. And then we've been able to distribute 100,000 SIM cards.
Was
30
there
gigs a month.
resistance between the corporate working with you guys at that time? Because they're in panic, I'm sure. Well, how was that relationship like?
Well, they still charge us money,
Right.
so we still pay. But it was, I can't review all the detailed commercial terms, but I believe it's practically at cost kind of package. And we also, as a foundation,
Everybody came
we
together
put up
to
some
help.
money. Yeah, and then the Education Bureau also helped to distribute, those SIM cards to 700 schools.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to shift a little mindset. We've been talking about survival. What about, exceeding or succeeding as being successful, going forward to thrive in your industry? Eva, from an investor perspective, what do you think investor needs to do now? Change your mindset or whatever, just changing strategy to be more, successful, profitable going forward?
I think why don't I share the other way? I mean, what our investors have been focusing on, sustainable investment, which is actually one of the speaker, sharing. We talk about this SI term a lot, but what is it about? And why it's related to pandemic. It's because after the pandemic, people are more local. People look for more resilient. That's why this topic become a very important focus. And people might think, I add this element into my company, it's cost. What does that bring me in terms of benefit? In fact, it brings you tax benefit. Governments have been very supportive of sustainable investment. Second, it's actually improve your operating margins. And lastly, your workforce will enjoy it. So all these benefits, eventually we go back to the company. And when we do, sort of screening of company,
Right.
ESG, SI become a very key things that we screened. And in fact, when we look out for the next 10 years, a lot of highest growth opportunities appear in companies focus more on the sustainable side of investment.
Right.
And in fact, not too far away, 10 years, year to date, our portfolio of sustainable investment actually outperform the traditional basket of index.
Like green loans, green debt, and all that.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So this is something I think, as an investor, as a corporate, they need to understand the importance of it.
Great.
And put where your resources are.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Shank, technology. We talked about survival. Now, what are the critical things you think all traditional businesses need to invest in to thrive in the future?
I've observed two approaches, general approaches to digital transformation. One is the shiny object approach.
Okay.
Oh, there's a new technology, there's a new trend, like, I want to be part of this.
What is that? What do you think is a shiny object?
Shiny objects, there's so many out there.
Yeah, name one that you harbor yourself.
It's like, I would like to say blockchain, but...
Right? Okay, right. I don't think Duncan would agree.
No,
but,
no,
all right.
it wouldn't. But like, there are these things that everyone would like to have. Virtual reality through like
So you're
fantastic.
not a gamer then?
No, it's like not a gamer, but like it has industrial applications as well, right? So you can do something like this where you put your resources into a specific technology,
Right.
or you do something different. What I would like go for core or focus on your core. It's like, focus on those activities in your company that create most value, and think about like, can technology make a difference here?
So, but then we just talked about incremental innovation, where you take an ice pick to make ice instead of creating the refrigerator. So from your industry, something that's so traditional, what do you think that you will see in the future technology will change you from being an ice pick into a refrigerator?
Yeah. Surprisingly, it is the chemical industry is very relationship based, right? Like, you build, because of the nature of our business, long-term relationship with our customers. However, what I definitely see going forward is the role that digital will play in commerce, right? Like, handling transaction,
Okay.
selling, presenting our product and solution portfolio online so people can not only learn from it from a sales rep, but like, do self-exploration.
Self-service.
Self-exploration, all of these things that use.
Is that on your roadmap
Huh?
now? Is that on your roadmap?
Every business unit of ours does that actually on the roadmap.
Okay,
It's a critical enabler of success, I believe, going forward. The way that we're working with, servicing, selling, interacting with our customers through digital channels.
From the real estate industry, which is very traditional, we're still looking at e-commerce. But to look at it, the truth is e-commerce has been around for 20 years. So sometimes you're scratching your head, why are we still working on it? So anyway, that's another problem we have to deal with.
It is around for 20 years. It's even longer than that. But again, the pandemic really kicked it up a notch.
Yes,
the
it did.
readiness to really say like, okay, now we're putting real resources into it is much higher in the last 18 months.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lang, tough question for you. We heard from the business side all the great stuff they need to do, and and then EVA supports ESG, sustainability, and all that stuff. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who are very skeptical. You know what? You guys don't have a bottom line. You don't have P&L. You don't have shareholders to report to. Where's the profit, right? In a time like this, and you can tell people, let's do for nonprofit stuff. Let's do for the good being. Let's not make money. Let's spend extra money to make it green. What do you tell these people out here? Top 3 things they should focus on why sustainability and ESG is such a good thing that we all must do it naturally. Planet, people first before profit.
Yeah, I think fundamentally we're all human, right? So we continue to be human even you put ourselves into a company or an organization. So that's naturally, I think, what a human does. You help your neighbors, you help your communities. We all live together. So it doesn't make any sense if you alone or I alone makes all the profit and become very prosperous, and while everyone else is suffer, because at the end of the day, you will suffer too. So I think, in good times, of course, it's a good virtue to use your extras to help people. To be honest, in bad times, I think it's even more important for us to go out and help our community.
Right, that's good. I mean, like from a sustainability perspective, name one thing you want everybody here to able to do continuous forward. What is it that you tell us to do to be successful, personally and profitable-wise?
Yeah, no, to me, I think especially for business, I used to come from business myself. I used to be in private equity. I think very importantly, you are doing it from, not just a branding perspective. So if you want to understand a particular social issue, then try to invest time to understand it, and then use your resources, not just the money, but your time, and sometimes your company's advantage, technology side, innovation side, legal side, use your professionals to them help promote that cause.
I think it'd be a great session if you and Mr. Nar will be on stage debating this, because I was pretty shocked at all the stuff Mr. Nar said. Well, really? So I like it because it's calling some stuff bullshit, right? Excuse my French.
Like Chen just said, we can't.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But
I can't debate with an Indian.
That'd be great. Have a good conversation. So finally, Sebastian, we have so many great keynote speakers, and you started off telling us about the economics and microeconomics and stuff like that. We have heard from profit and non-profit, the both sides, the balance, the scale. From your perspective, what key 3 elements from microeconomics perspective that you think will impact every businesses in here? And what do they need to do to stay agile and be resilient and to be successful going forward?
Indeed, I think that in my mind, the geopolitical situation that the world is embracing today is a dramatic change of events and will shape a substantial amount of tensions and opportunities. In the technology area, for example, decoupling is a word that we have been using for a while. I think those tensions will aggravate the decoupling of technologies, and that will fundamentally impact in the long term every company, especially companies that are much more linked to China in Asia. Second point, I think that you mentioned, Eva, sustainability. Everybody has mentioned, and Chandran did, sustainability, which for many, many years were basically a branding issue, now is becoming a true force of change, a good change in all areas of sustainability. So especially for every single industry being very in understanding of what sustainability means and how sustainability affects each industry is going to be paramount to the way we operate, to the way we act, to the people we hire, and to the way we operate within the societies. And finally, especially for the finance world, which affects the whole world, I think that the digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, that includes blockchain as a part of the overall, is a fundamental macro change that will impact the world. It's already beginning to impact the world. It's now being driven by governments like we've seen in China and the rest. And I think these macro trends, which today is probably early to understand how they will evolve, will substantially and dramatically affect societies. This is the reason why, for example, we just launched our digital exchange in Singapore a few months ago in understanding and trying to understand how this will evolve and how private companies can participate with governments in the evolution of something dramatically different for the future.
Thank you so much. I mean, perfect timing. We're perfect, okay, this panel has been. So I hope you guys all enjoyed our little conversation. Too bad running out of time. Thank you so much for everybody's insights and candidacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So right now, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Before we move on to our next session, we have a little exercise for you. I hope you guys will all participate and enjoy the process. There's a 15-minute exercise. There's a facilitator in each of your table. The key things you guys need to focus on is one thing. What is the pressing challenge you're facing right now in your company? And based on all the keynote speakers and the panelists you have heard so far, was there anything there, any case study, any advice that can help you overcome this challenge? The floor is yours. Enjoy. Thank you so much.
So what we're discussing is what are the pressing challenges right now for your company? And we're all going to discuss that. And also, as we said, think about some of the ideas that we've heard and whether those ideas can help us with those challenges that we face. Michael, I'd like to start with you and the obvious challenges that you're facing and maybe some of the ideas that you're coming up with to help yourself resolve those challenges.
Thanks for the question, Nick. And yes, we are in the travel and loyalty business. And obviously in the last 1-2 years, we are in the difficult times because of the flight load factors drop a lot. Other than that, I think another challenge is really we kind of lost the physical touch point with customers. And therefore it makes life a lot more difficult to understand the customer's needs in a way. But in the last, 18 months, we spent a lot of time and investment in different areas in the group. For example, how we can improve our cargo business, how we can make our loyalty program more digital focused. Because in a way, our loyalty program is like a digital marketing company that we have a platform that we can let the members and our customers to understand more about the program, and then later on fly with us again when the pandemic is over. So in the last 18 months, challenging is really challenging. On one hand, we have to work a lot closer with the government and other airlines and overseas government as well, how we can resume the network as soon as possible. But at the same time, how we can make use of these kind of golden opportunities to improve ourselves, our internal systems as well, such that we can work closer with customers, even in digital format, and working close with them and also our partners again. There's a challenge on one hand, and other things are how we can improve this. Yeah.
And how long do you think it's going to affect, maybe this is a very difficult question, but how long do you think this is going to continue to affect your company especially? And how long can you be resilient?
Well, as you can see from the news, there are many ways to get the funding from the government and from the bonds market. But right now, I think the travel industry as a whole, I would say end of this year or early next year, I think the load factor will go back maybe 40%, 30%, half. But to resume back to the pre-pandemic era, I would say that will be another 1-2 years. But we need all of us, all the citizens, all the governments, all the organizations to work together. Yep.
Lovely. Well, let's move to a different industry. Liliana, what about you? What are the challenges that you're currently facing at the moment?
Yes, I think maybe I don't spend too much time to talk about the challenges that we have already overcome. Like during the time of pandemic, at the very onset of the pandemic, we have to go everything online, digital, including how our colleagues work and how we work AB team, and then how we also have to reshuffle. We also have shops because we have retail shops, and we also have Porsche outlets, for example, for Jepson. And so that's why those times have passed already. And we have done something very similar to what the speaker has just said about. The whole management executive teams met together, really plan ahead. And now here comes to the really kind of, I'm not so sure it's post-pandemic or not, but at least it's really coming to a time that we are seeing things maybe finally normalized. And then what we are facing, the pressing challenge right now is that really forward planning. So forward planning is hugely difficult. And I believe all the participants here would agree. And for example, right now in Hong Kong locally, we are still trying to predict when maybe most outlets could be open or to their full capacity, and how many people can sit together on one table, for example. So we need to have these kind of assumptions in order to really prepare ourselves when we have to adjust, and how to adjust our A&P expenses, for example, and how are we going to readjust our workforces to cater for the upcoming, and by when the traffic of the customers would come back, and then in what extent, and in what stages as well. So these making our forecasting and also planning especially difficult. And how we can do it probably would be we can only try our very best to make a very detailed assumptions, and then we will be able to try to define really a detailed plan regarding different stages of gradually coming back of our customers, for example.
So I mean, your company is all about innovation, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what are you coming up with to deal with this, whatever you want to call it, new normal or post-pandemic world? You know, as a company which is in itself as being innovative, how are you coming up with new ideas?
Yeah, I think I agree the previous conversation that someone saying the pandemic accelerated the digitalization and also the technology. So I can say like we are entering a next wave of the e-commerce or even the online trading. So this is also benefit for us, especially for like a automation or robotic system that we are doing right now. So I can say is we are quite lucky during the pandemic. So we are I think one of the benefit industry that we have. So you know, there's a lot of like a grocery business or e-commerce business growing very fast, and then so that they need to have some AI or robotic system to support them for that huge demand in growth from their business. So that we are catching them, we are helping them to reach their customer need or another new service level with in their country. For example, like a same-day delivery or next-day delivery. So we are supporting them for that huge demand of the order coming in their country. So I think both grocery item and also like some, even though some apparel, you can see a lot of news that some of the shop they closed it, but they changed it in the e-commerce. So they spend all the expenses in the warehouse, in the automation, in the e-commerce platform to helping to serve or maybe keeping, I can say, survive in their business. Yeah.
Good. And Trevor, we heard from your boss there,
Yeah.
talking about how your company really was thinking about this even before it happened.
Yeah.
And that not specifically about this pandemic, but always planning for when the unexpected happens and always being ready for that. I thought it was a very interesting point, and maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, actually, by the way, I'm not a banker. I come from a 24 years technology background. And I joined DBS 2 years ago, and I report to Hong Kong organization only 1 year ago. So it was the time to start, yeah? The pandemic start. Actually, when I first saw him, he said, you know, I want something this year, okay? And I have thought about it and released it this year, which is end of last year. So actually, to me, the challenge at the time was we understand people will not go to the branch for banking, which, well, Bill Gates said along, banking 3.0 or 2.0 talk a lot, right? But how to do it? Yeah. So it's really about technology, and also because we are in the bank, there's a lot of regulation we need to follow. And there's a lot of fraud case. Just for example, if you want to open a bank account, not go to the bank. Then you use the mobile phone. If actually you now go and go to search, people is there to print a 3D mask and wear it and try to pass the AI, the ID verification as well. So lots of this mix of, in my previous career, technology is easier. Because I pass to customer, you handle the compliance, you handle the fraud. But now I need to handle by myself. So I think this is really the challenge I'm facing, and the bank is facing as well. And we are seeing, and another part is, we are used to go to certain credit reference agency or search company to find it, to grab the data. But those historical data may not be relevant anymore, because the whole industry, business model, the economies are totally changed. So we need to be very creative. And then being not stuck with something, oh, I need to see a business case in order for us to do something. There's no business case, there's no one to copy. and if you want to copy someone's success and then you start, sorry, we are in the wrong timing of this industry. So I think this is all, I will say this is the kind of second party, third party data. How can we get them? How can we make sure the integrity, the quality, and then we are able to be really advanced in using technology to do better business. Yeah, this is all our challenges nowadays.
So you talked about coming up with new ideas and being creative. Can you give us an example of that?
Well, I can give you a very simple example, like OCR, right? Even when I was a secondary school, I was going to the some Shui Po, yeah, all these, look at the scanning all the documents. But the accuracy